Dishonor, Chapter 37 to Back to Normality Chapter 41. Afterwards, Lena left for an walk along the beach with Rhaenys. Daemon was placed under guard to prepare for his departure at first light. Corlys stayed in his solar to punish his liver, and Joffrey, Laenor, and I went to Laenor's rooms. After Joffrey had declared Laenor to be overstating how bad his nose pained him, and Laenor had done pouting, we turned our attention to heavier matters. Do not worry. He cannot accept sharing her. He cannot accept putting himself under Rhaenyra's power. Give him a few hours to work himself into a rage and do something stupid, Joffrey told me, and then poured himself a cup of wine. Then Corlys will ship him off with no blame attached to us, and he'll look like an unhinged lunatic. We will secure Vhagar and Lena's allegiance with little work on our part. I dislike referring to my sister in such mercenary terms, grouched Laenor. I apologize. If I'm being truthful, we were merely unlucky. Had Daemon remained on the stepstones, we would have had time to further bring Lena to our side. I had an angle of sorts. Him being present makes it far less effective, Joffrey surmised as he took his wine and collapsed onto the low couch. Laenor dropped down next to him and drew him close. I am sorry, Joff, I did not realize I was putting you in harm's way. And who else could you have married her to? Asked Joffrey, tangling their hands together. I suddenly felt like an intruder. You married her to me because you wanted me close, but if we speak truly, I can think of no other who is loyal to Rhaenyra who would not only overlook the loss of her maidenhead but also the bastard. We could have let her go back to Daemon, I said, voice bitter. Let her learn just what her fairy tale life would have been. Rhaenyra, you can't mean that. Laenor cried. Joffrey just sighed. She's angry. Lena threw everything back in her face. Our princess does not accept rejection lightly. I frowned at that before turning round and walking to the window. He was right, damn him. Aegon, Lena, no, I've never taken rejection well. He could at least make me sound less like Daemon though. Rhaenyra? I am sorry about my sister. What's done is done. We need to think about the future now. What will we tell Viserys when we get to King's Landing? I asked, trying to cast her from my mind and not quite succeeding. We tell him Daemon believed Lena his by right and reacted badly to rejection. Corlys will have to silence the men who saw today, but most will bow to him. Alicent will suspect, but she'll be even less willing to potentially push Lena into Daemon's arms. Joffrey told us. We'll be dancing the line of ACC-. Must we speak about politics again? It's all I ever get to speak about these days. I want one night where I don't have to think about bloody Daemon and who my sister is bedding, Laenor sighed, frustration evident in his voice. I turned from the window and seated myself on the couch next to them and pushed a lock of silver hair from his face, enjoying the bewildered look I got in return. If we don't play politics, we'll all die in dragon flame, I told him before tapping him gently on the nose. Joffrey chuckled as he wrinkled it in response. I shall throw myself into Seasmoke's maw if I must play the perfect prince even in private, he cried, finger jamming into a chuckling Joffrey's side. Joffrey jerked away and looked as if he very much wanted to respond in kind. You're being dramatic, Laenor. You like playing politics more than you admit, Joffrey said before running a finger over his neck, causing Laenor's eyes to flutter closed and him to lean into his lover's chest. The tension seemed to drain from his body as Joffrey brought his arms around him with a chuckle. I had no business being here. I am going to ride Syrax. Have a nice afternoon. Ride her I did. I couldn't remember the last time I'd simply clambered aboard Syrax and rode her without any real ulterior motive other than to just ride. Although my lazy dragon might grumble, I could tell she enjoyed it too. I urged her on through the winds, coaxing out the acrobatics Rhaenys had so praised her for. She especially loved dropping down low to send the sea spraying upwards with her claws. It was a meditation of sorts, taking all my anger, fear and jumbled emotions and letting Syrax burn them all up. A way to let my mind wander and just feel Syrax beneath me, let her take me where she wanted. I barely even had to use my whip, she seemed to respond to the lightest touch on the reins or twist of my body. I was half drowned and emotionally numb when I finally took her in for a landing and clambered off. One of the braver Valerian men volunteered to strip her of her saddle and I was dreaming of a warm bath and dry clothes to replace my sodden riding gear when an out-of-breath Lena jogged into view. I managed to stifle the groan as my warm bath seemed further and further away. Instead, I marshaled what little energy I had left and grit my teeth. She still loved him. She knew everything and she still loved him. Something must have shown on my face because she approached cautiously, as one might approach a wild animal you were unsure of the temperament of. Okay, I will admit that sometimes that approach was warranted. She was still breathing hard when she reached me, but she looked a little more reassured. I wasn't about to strike her with something when I didn't fly into a rage. A bold move to keep approaching given I still had my riding whip. I'd put up with so much, I was so close, I wasn't going to piss it all away now because I was angry with her. She could suffer after Damon was safely away. I saw you riding Syrax. Mother says you've gotten even better, she began, directing a small hesitant smile at me. Not in the mood for small talk, I raised an eyebrow. I'm sure I looked very impressive to her, being 5'2" and vaguely resembling a drowned cat. And possessing the temper of one, I reminded myself. Very well, she said you handled her better than a drunken ostler. I couldn't help it, I snorted in amusement and some of the tension drained out of her shoulders. I didn't take it personally, she'd once referred to Lena as an adequate rider. Adequate. The girl was the best rider of our generation. Adequate my arse, she could go toe-to-toe with Rainey's on a good day. She told me I had to come and speak to you, Lena told me. To beg your pardon and to ask for my position back amongst your ladies. Oh son of a. I'd forgotten about that. Fuck me, I'd been stupid enough to forget. Lena was one of my ladies. Rainey's may have assumed I'd stripped her of her position, but it hadn't even occurred to me to do so. My ladies that accompanied me everywhere. Like to King's Landing. Fuck. 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 I opened my mouth to tell her that she wasn't stepping foot in the capital in my employ, but she cut in. Please. I made a mistake. I did, I know that, but I was never disloyal. I never betrayed you. I never betrayed Laner. When I had nothing to say to that, she frowned. You will have my nieces and nephews. You'll put them on the throne. Please believe I would never endanger that. You already have, I stated sourly. Not on purpose. I thought I could bring him to you. I did believe that. She loved her family too much to turn against them as Damon would have required. She would love any offspring of her brothers too much to take a throne for her own from them. She was a naive child with a temper. I'd known this. I'd always known this. Joffrey had known this. Laenor had known this. Hell, even Rhaenys had known that her complete lack of knowledge as to how the world actually worked would see her in trouble one day. None of us had done anything, even I had merely found it a charming quirk. I worked my jaw, annoyed at being put on the spot. I needed something to bind her to me more solidly before I could begin to trust her once more. How I hated that. That I needed blackmail material, that I needed to be the one in control, before I trusted her. Even if I could trust her, she'd be a complete liability. I would be forever wondering about where she was and what she was being tricked into. Damn it. Damn her. Damn Rhaenys. Do you not wish to have the babe on Driftmark? I asked, changing tact. She blinked in surprise and laid a hand against her stomach. She would be showing soon. Hell, I was surprised she wasn't already, but new mothers were often slow to show. You do not wish me with you in the capital? She asked, pale and upset. I mentally winced before sighing. Lena dash. What do you want from me? I will do it. I want to be of use to you and the Blacks since I have damaged your cause. Those were her mother's words. I studied her in the half-light of the evening and grimaced. I can't trust you, I admitted, and she recoiled from me as if I had physically struck her. But you would go through all of this for my dragon? Why? Why if you can't trust her rider? Why not just write me off as a lost cause? Her sobbed question held a hint of anger and struck me dumb for a moment. I had put up with Damon's antics for her dragon. Put up with Lena's antics for her dragon. I was going to put up with Damon's child close to me for years, potentially, for her sodding dragon, but that dragon followed her rider. What good was the dragon if I couldn't trust the rider? Fine, but if you ever pull anything like this ever again, there will be no third chance, I got out between gritted teeth. She nodded so hard that I feared her head may fly clean off. I'd have to get Joffrey to watch her to make sure she was never alone with Alicent's lackeys. I led her back to Laenor's rooms and finally got my bath before changing into something dry. Then we took our meal in Laenor's room as a storm began to roll in, thunder crashing in the distance and the wind beginning to pick up. A note arrived from Lady Rhaenys halfway through dessert telling that Lena would be expected to announce her pregnancy to her family in the morn. The damage control had evidently started then. I did not envy Corlys in managing this shit show. The note set the cat amongst the pigeons, and so as a distraction we broke out the playing cards and a pitcher of wine. We probably should have remained sober, but my body was 18 with all the joys that brought, and I was stressed out of my mind. So sue me. The four of us were more than a little tipsy when Laner gave up being the butt monkey and dragged Joffrey over to one of the bookshelves, reading risque poetry from Liszt to his blushing lover. I found myself growing melancholy after a while. The two seemed genuinely happy. I wanted that, I realized. I wanted to be happy with someone. Woman or man, I wasn't sure it mattered to me anymore, but I wanted it. I am sorry, Lena said in a low voice, startling me from my revelation. She'd remained at the table with me, sipping wine. I did not know. About your hand. I asked Mother. She told me everything. That he pursued you beyond all the boundaries of acceptability. That she tried to protect you. That Viserys, your father, did not listen. I cut her off as I held up my fingers and marveled at how alcohol numbed the pain that was normally present when I moved them too much, was stressed, or when Daemon came up in conversation. Lena's hands gently caught them and she probed the break again, pushing and rubbing at it in the way I frequently did when it pained me. I thought it was a tell for when you were nervous or lying, she whispered, and I could just pick up the bitterness in her tone again. I thought you lied a lot. I do it when it pains me. It pains me a lot, I replied, wondering why we were whispering. We stayed in silence for quite a while, listening to Laener's terrible poetry recital and Joffrey's occasional guffaws and gasps of scandalized shock. Could Maester Gerardis fix it? She asked as I basked in the cool touch. I was well aware that I should not be letting her do this, that I should be pulling away, but that lonely ache inside of me would not let me. Instead, I let myself relax a little and allowed only a slight feeling of guilt at enjoying it. Lena had been the first, and to date only, woman I'd ever wanted in this body. I'd fled to Driftmark horrified at my attraction to Daemon and found her. My one lifeline to what my mind insisted was normal. I could look at other women all I liked and feel nothing. No. He would need to re-break them in the exact way they were broken beforehand. No healer could be that precise. It seems I am stuck with them, I answered, shaking myself from melancholy thoughts. Her lips pressed together at that and she carried on, as if the news they could not be fixed was a challenge. Perhaps we should go to my rooms, suggested Lena, startling me out of half-doze about 10 minutes later. I followed her gaze and drew in a sharp breath. Yes, let's definitely leave Joffrey and Laenor to it. I followed her through the halls of high tide, unsteady on my feet. I would have to watch that. Viserys was too keen to drink to forget his problems, and I had no desire to end up being a second Viserys. Or a first King Robert. Then again, Lena was as unsteady as I was and apparently, quite the merry drunk. Did you see the look on Laenor's face? She murmured in a low voice before dissolving into giggles once more. In fairness, the fact that Laenor had forgotten our existence only to remember it as we left the room was hilarious, so I giggled along with her. Besides, Joffrey's plan was still echoing in my brain. She needed to be invested enough in me and my cause that Daemon was slowly pushed out. Her rooms weren't locked, but it still took a while for us to fumble around with the heavy latch and get the doors open. Then we poured ourselves inside, still giggling. I wasn't sure what I expected from them, to be honest. They seemed cozy. A writing desk covered in books that I would hazard a guess included information about dragons or geography, several beautiful maps decorated the walls covering Westeros and Western Essos, a table and chairs surrounding a low-burning fire bathed the whole ensemble in a low and warm light. In truth, it was not too dissimilar to Laenor's rooms. He just had a whole lot more books. The door swung shut and I turned to compliment her on the decor and realized she was frozen, staring in horror at something behind her. I followed her gaze and my blood turned to ice. Good evening, niece, I did not expect to see you here so late. His smile was cruel as his eyes moved from me to Lena, where it softened. Why was he here? He was supposed to be under guard. Daemon, why, you did not say you were coming. Her eyes flickered to me and she bit her lip, looking worried. You should not be here. I got the message. She hadn't invited him. He wasn't here because she wanted him here. Where are your guards, uncle? I asked, proud my voice did not waver. The smile he gave me told me everything I needed to know about their fates. They've retired for the night, he said, completely unconvincingly. I needed to speak with you, dear heart. If you've killed my father's guards you'll have less than nothing from me, she said, voice cold. I forced air into my lungs. Fear was doing an admirable job of clearing my head of the fog of wine. Pain lanced through my fingers and I had to force a whimper to die in my throat. There was no Criston Cole to save me now. I only had a 6 stinky knives and Lena. Lena, come now, he said in a tone that had anyone used on me would have earned a slap at the minimum. It was patronizing, as if she were a sulking child as opposed to the woman he professed to love. We have had this conversation before. You swore you would not deny me anything. He stepped forward and I stepped back. Lena remained still, eyes blazing defiance. I thought you a better man back then. A man who would not maim his niece or betray his oaths. Oh Lena. Damon just chuckled in response to that and paced forward, slowly, as if he were some great cat stalking its prey. Then his eyes flickered to me and my heart seemed to leap into my throat. It is good that you have come, niece. This seems to be a day of truth, it is only fair you receive your share. I forced myself to meet his eyes, to not show that I was internally screaming in horror. Lena's sharply drawn breath drew my eye to her. Why am I not surprised, she said, voice bitter and angry. I betray my oaths, or did you forget that? Alright, I clearly only have half of this conversation. I watched as Damon met Lena's eyes. There was some sort of power play here. He knew something she didn't want me to know and they were playing chicken as to whether she would give in before he told me. I had to play this carefully. Come with me. Leave behind this uncertainty. I'll even secure the stepstones for her. I'll put her on that damn throne if I have to do so alone against all the world, but come with me. Stay by my side. A cold feeling of horror spread from my gut. So this was his plan. We'd thought he'd do something rash in his anger, this spoke of planning. That was the problem with Damon. He was impulsive, hedonistic and proud. He hated being told no or being disobeyed in any way. He hated coming in second to anyone and was good enough that it rarely happened. He was charismatic, cunning, intelligent and good enough with blade and lance to dance through life without really trying. We had assumed he'd see the trap and opt to flip the table rather than lose the game, but mayhaps he'd thought he'd found a strategy that would let him win. Damon, no. We all agree dash, he cut off with a laugh, strolling past us both and dropping into one of her chairs, falling into his habitual lounge. Lena's mouth pressed into near invisibility in displeasure. You all agreed. I did not. Do you not see what they have done? He asked. Lena did not answer and he snorted. She wants your dragon. Not you. I know that. Lena was flushed red with rage and he smirked again. I could run for the door. I could probably get it open before he caught me. I could scream for the guard then, bring every man in the castle running. Lena, she is not your friend. She sees you as a stepping stone on her path to the throne. If she truly cared about you, she would have worked with you so that we could obtain the annulment. She would have sent you to me with her blessing. Oh shit. Oh shit, he is good. Instead, she married you to a man who will never love you. Never please you. She dragged you down to her level so you could share her misery. I swallowed hard. I didn't know what was worse, that this had a good chance of working or that he was right. I had to do something. I'd be a bigger fool to let him control this whole conversation. That's not true, I was proud my voice did not shake, at least. Lena's head whirled round as if she'd forgotten I was there. Lena, you know that's not true. I care for you. He is not a nice man, he would have hurt you in the end. I'm a woman grown, Renera. You are the younger, she said, looking miserable. She does not know he would kill her. She does not know how low he would fall. Would she still make the choice to be with him if she knew? I swallowed back the old and familiar rage, but some of it must have shown because she met my gaze with a defiant stare. Damon laughed once more. Look at her. So full of hate and anger. What do you honestly think will happen when I'm gone? That you'll be friends once more, that you'll tell each other your deepest, darkest secrets and all will be well? My heart raced as she stared at her feet. No. She'll make you suffer for insulting her so. For bringing me back into her life. She'll make your life miserable. She'll make our child's life miserable. I wanted to protest that it wasn't true, but the words stuck in my throat when Lena raised her gaze to me and I realized she'd already known. You're petty, vain, angry, overly proud and arrogant in the extreme, she told me, looking distinctly unimpressed. My heart dropped. Why was it always so easy to forget she was observant? But I've always known that, Rhiannon. Guilt and shame hit me like a sledgehammer and I dropped my gaze to the floor. I'd married her to a man who'd never love her because it was convenient for me, I'd treated her like a pawn in a chess game and I'd blamed her for it all. How sweet, came Damon's mocking tone. Enough, she told him sharply. Enough, Damon. You've made your point. You will finally see sense then. Abandon this woman who is not worthy of you. And you are? She asked incredulously. My head shot up so fast I thought I might give myself whiplash. You keep threatening me. You broke my brother's nose. She examined us both, eyes critical, before she carried on. You both treat me as if I am some kind of prized possession. Something to be awarded to whoever can win this war of yours. You'd pull me apart and leave me broken before you let the other have me, do not pretend you would not. She took a deep and shuddering breath. I am not some plaything, not some tool to be argued over. Hadn't I learned that lesson with Laner? I'd been so happy to manipulate and lie, and then I'd done the exact same thing again on a woman arguably more observant. I am an idiot. A complete idiot that does not deserve that dragon. I was supposed to be better than this. Better than Westeros. Damon's cat-like smile became a sneer and he rose to his feet. I wanted to step back again but I was rooted to the spot by a storm of emotions. I am not a patient man. You have one more chance. Or what? You'll tell her. Tell anyone who will listen. He paused, tilting his head as if her defiance was completely unexpected before frowning in anger. What do you suppose she'll do when she knows? He asked, eyes glittering dangerously in the low light. Lena just laughed bitterly in response. You're just proving my point. When Damon stared at her though, eyebrow raised in question, she turned her head and looked at me. She'll be disgusted. She'll pretend she isn't because she'll want my allegiance, but... I'm missing something, I said before my brain caught up. Damon chuckled and I was really starting to hate that stupid sound. I tried to keep my breathing level and not quail under his gaze. Indeed you are, niece. Perhaps we should mark this day with a festival. The day you admit you do not know everything, he snarled, features colored with anger. Then he turned back to Lena, who just looked. I couldn't place that look actually. Resigned. Tired. Numb. Maybe all three. I've made my choice, Damon. I choose my family. His hand shot out and gripped her arm with so much force that I forgot my fear and staggered forwards. I watched helplessly as Lena's hands curled into fists and her face twisted in anger right back at him. I love you. I love you so much I fear it might burn me up from the inside. You took my dull, unexciting life and brought color to it. You made me want to live for someone else. You bear my child. I am yours and you are mine. I wanted to retch. Do not do this, Lena, I will not warn you again. I am doing this. I am. This is my choice. I do love you. I know I should not but I do. But I cannot have the both of you. I realize that now. Joffrey wanted to have me believe I could but he's wrong. You proved that so I must choose. I've chosen family and home and my future queen. Ha! I should be reveling in that. Crowing to my uncle that I had one. Instead, I am ashamed. She thinks me some petty tyrant she will submit to and I'm not entirely sure how wrong she is. Do not do this to me, his tone was quiet and carried the promise of violence. I tensed up, hand finding a knife amongst the folds of my dress. I had one throw, maybe two, before he absolutely demolished me. When Lena merely raised her head in defiance once more he snarled and spoke again. You will never have her. Never. She'll make your life a living hell. You'll be stuck here, miserable, constantly yearning for what you can't have. Then he paused and sneered once more. Or who knows, perhaps my whore of niece will earn her dragon on her back. Understanding hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh, I breathed out. They both turned to look at me. Damon's face was triumphant. This was his trump card. His play to push me into screaming denial, the one thing he believed I could never tolerate. Understanding beat me about the head. He thought I put up Laner because I had no choice, because to expose him would be political suicide. It made his skin crawl, so why should it not mine? And if I felt that way about Laner, in his mind, what would I do if Lena directed those feelings at me? After all, I had rejected him, come to hate him, after his desire was unwelcome. Lena was pale. It honestly looked as if she was 3 seconds away from throwing up. As the silence stretched on she closed her eyes and seemed to brace herself, as if she expected my rage to get physical and she wasn't sure how hard I could hit. I forced myself to focus. I was an idiot. An absolute idiot. She'd all but tried to tell me at the feast. How long had she been sitting on that? I could have set her mind at rest and maybe headed off so much of this bullshit. Nerves set my stomach rolling and I wet my lips. I could have had her. I could have had her in my bed and Damon would never have gotten his foot in the door. My body was waking up now, informing me of how much that thought pleased it. I see, Lena's eyes opened once more and Damon's triumphant smile flickered and faded slightly. I am not disgusted. That does not disgust me. They both stared at me as if I'd grown a second head. Then Lena laughed. Well, it was more a hysterical giggle. Then she turned those violet eyes to a startled Damon and they narrowed. You see. That smile was very alarming. She does not care. Of course she does not. I saw it in his face then. He knew he'd lost. He knew that there was no way Lena would be leaving with him. That he'd shot his bolt and missed. He was angry. Very, very angry. Panic surged through me as he took a few steps closer to her, hand falling to where he normally wore his blade. This isn't over, Lena. I do not lose. When you realize my dear niece is lying through her teeth, I will be waiting for you. For my child. Then he brought a hand up to her cheek. Lena didn't move, still as a statue. And if you make me come to you, you will not enjoy what happens next. Enough. My voice came to me, finally, as I managed to master my fear and panic. Wrestling my breath under control. Uncle, enough. You've gone too far. Dear Rhaenyra, you never fail to surprise me with how low you are willing to sink to claim that throne. You ally with Alicent against your own blood, feign tolerance for that boy lover, let him put his colors on his lover with your blessing, now you're willing to whore yourself out for a conqueror's dragon. Of course, you must defend your children's rights. Corlys wants a grandchild on the throne and the Seven know you cannot provide that. So you must send me away, render my child's claim null with your little marriage scheme and secure his mother's goodwill. The way he said goodwill made me want to burn my clothes and then boil my skin off for good measure. But not even the rage and fear I was feeling could distract me from Lena's careful movements. Slowly backing up as if in fear, towards the door. Okay, good thinking. He sneered at my silence, taking my realization of Lena's plan as having nothing to say in my defense. I saw him lean back, getting ready to turn, to point out how terrible I was to someone who wasn't standing by his side anymore. Shit. Daemon Targaryen. His attention whipped back towards me. Alright, time to do this. Time to do this right. My voice trembled when I spoke again and I cursed it. In the name of Viserys, first of his name, King of the Undulls, the first men in the Rhoynar, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the realm, I, Rhaenyra Targaryen, heir to the Iron Throne, do hereby reinstate your sentence of banishment to be effective immediately, punishable by death should it be broken. He stayed still for a few moments and then tilted his head back and laughed, shoulders shaking and eyes running with mirth. I grit my teeth as Lena reached to door, eyes on me and worried. Oh Rhaenyra, that ship sailed a long time ago. You think I care about banishment now? He laughed again and then turned to Lena, realizing too late she wasn't where she was supposed to be. He blinked when he saw her by the door. Finally, his face morphed into one of fury. My fingers burned in response. He might have done something very stupid then, might have struck me or pulled a dagger or another unforgivable crime, but Lena put a stop to all of that when she pulled the door open and screamed for the guard. He cursed and fully turned away from me to the door. Not the door, I realized as he started moving. Lena. He's heading for Lena. He'll do something terrible because she rejected him. He'll do something terrible because he's angry. I let loose one of my daggers, mind blank with panic. With no time to aim, it was an appalling throw. I was tired, still tipsy and far from composed. It didn't even hit him. In fact, I was probably lucky I didn't hit Lena. Instead it flew past Daemon's chest and bounced over the wall, leaving an ugly chunk missing from the dark wood veneer. Daemon crashed to a halt in surprise. Taking advantage of the momentary pause, Lena scrambled backwards out of my sight and down the hallway. I could hear the guards now, shouting out in alarm and bringing more with them as they moved towards us. You had to hand it to them, when the Lord's daughter screamed for help they arrived with a fire beneath their arses. Oh, I breathed out. They both turned to look at me. Daemon's face was triumphant. This was his trump card. His play to push me into screaming denial, the one thing he believed I could never tolerate. Understanding beat me about the head. He thought I put up Laenor because I had no choice, because to expose him would be political suicide. It made his skin crawl, so why should it not mine? And if I felt that way about Laner, in his mind, what would I do if Lena directed those feelings at me? After all, I had rejected him, come to hate him, after his desire was unwelcome. Lena was pale. It honestly looked as if she was 3 seconds away from throwing up. As the silence stretched on, she closed her eyes and seemed to brace herself, as if she expected my rage to get physical and she wasn't sure how hard I could hit. I forced myself to focus. I was an idiot. An absolute idiot. She'd all but tried to tell me at the feast. How long had she been sitting on that? I could have set her mind at rest and maybe headed off so much of this bullshit. Nerves set my stomach rolling and I wet my lips. I could have had her. I could have had her in my bed and Damon would never have gotten his foot in the door. My body was waking up now, informing me of how much that thought pleased it. I see, Lena's eyes opened once more and Damon's triumphant smile flickered and faded slightly. I am not disgusted. That does not disgust me. They both stared at me as if I'd grown a second head. Then Lena laughed. Well, it was more a hysterical giggle. Then she turned those violet eyes to a startled Damon and they narrowed. You see. That smile was very alarming. She does not care. Of course she does not. I saw it in his face then. He knew he'd lost. He knew that there was no way Lena would be leaving with him. That he'd shot his bolt and missed. He was angry. Very, very angry. Panic surged through me as he took a few steps closer to her, hand falling to where he normally wore his blade. This isn't over, Lena. I do not lose. When you realize my dear niece is lying through her teeth, I will be waiting for you. For my child. Then he brought a hand up to her cheek. Lena didn't move, still as a statue. And if you make me come to you, you will not enjoy what happens next. Enough. My voice came to me, finally, as I managed to master my fear and panic. Wrestling my breath under control. Uncle, enough. You've gone too far. Dear Rhaenyra, you never fail to surprise me with how low you are willing to sink to claim that throne. You ally with Alicent against your own blood, feign tolerance for that boy lover, let him put his colors on his lover with your blessing, now you're willing to whore yourself out for a conqueror's dragon. Of course, you must defend your children's rights. Corlys wants a grandchild on the throne and the Seven know you cannot provide that. So you must send me away, render my child's claim null with your little marriage scheme and secure his mother's goodwill. The way he said goodwill made me want to burn my clothes and then boil my skin off for good measure. But not even the rage and fear I was feeling could distract me from Lena's careful movements. Slowly backing up as if in fear, towards the door. Okay, good thinking. He sneered at my silence, taking my realization of Lena's plan as having nothing to say in my defense. I saw him lean back, getting ready to turn, to point out how terrible I was to someone who wasn't standing by his side anymore. Shit. Daemon Targaryen. His attention whipped back towards me. Alright, time to do this. Time to do this right. My voice trembled when I spoke again and I cursed it. In the name of Viserys, first of his name, King of the Undulls, the first men in the Rhoynar, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm, I, Rhaenyra Targaryen, heir to the Iron Throne, do hereby reinstate your sentence of banishment to be effective immediately, punishable by death should it be broken. He stayed still for a few moments and then tilted his head back and laughed, shoulders shaking and eyes running with mirth. I grit my teeth as Lena reached to door, eyes on me and worried. Oh Rhaenyra, that ship sailed a long time ago. You think I care about banishment now? He laughed again and then turned to Lena, realizing too late she wasn't where she was supposed to be. He blinked when he saw her by the door. Finally, his face morphed into one of fury. My fingers burned in response. He might have done something very stupid then, might have struck me or pulled a dagger or another unforgivable crime, but Lena put a stop to all of that when she pulled the door open and then screamed for the guard. He cursed and fully turned away from me to the door. Not the door, I realized as he started moving. Lena. He's heading for Lena. He'll do something terrible because she rejected him. He'll do something terrible because he's angry. I let loose one of my daggers, mind blank with panic. With no time to aim, it was an appalling throw. I was tired, still tipsy and far from composed. It didn't even hit him. In fact, I was probably lucky I didn't hit Lena. Instead, it flew past Daemon's chest and bounced over the wall, leaving an ugly chunk missing from the dark wood veneer. Daemon crashed to a halt in surprise. Taking advantage of the momentary pause, Lena scrambled backwards out of my sight and down the hallway. I could hear the guards now, shouting out in alarm and bringing more with them as they moved towards us. You had to hand it to them, when the Lord's daughter screamed for help they arrived with a fire beneath their arses. Spice Town burned. It had been burning through the night and well into morn. The men had formed bucket chains now and were fighting it. Even from high tide he could see the destruction. Great swathes of the town reduced to cinders, houses pulled down to form fire breaks, and worst of all, the 3 terrible gouges where Carax's flame had struck. Daemon Targaryen was a dead man walking, he thought to himself as he finally pulled his eyes from the destruction. He would see him dead even if it took him 1,000 lifetimes and his other leg. Laenor had poured his heart and soul into that town. He limped his way through the familiar halls of high tide to Laenor's rooms. Laenor would not be in them. His heart gave a pang at that. How was he supposed to deal with the revelation of Lena's proclivities? He had not known, not for sure, until she'd returned, and by that point the matter had been too delicate for him to tell Laenor. His Silver Prince had fought the flames for as long as possible besides his men, directing their bucket chains and helping create the fire breaks that had saved a large part of the residences. Then he had gone to his mother, and 3 of them, Lena included, had shut themselves away. Laenor's silence hurt. It was like a knife to his heart. The heart he had so recently reopened to the man he'd given his heart to the moment he had seen him. So recently, it was hard to believe that the feast had been just a few days ago. So much had happened. He had returned to his rooms early. Criston Cole had been with the king that night, and the sight of him made him sick with rage. Impotent rage. Laenor had been there, waiting for him, ready for some heartfelt gesture or declaration of love as only his sweet prince could. He had given in. Once they'd bedded one another, they'd spoken. Truly spoken for the first time since Criston Cole had shattered his leg on that field. It had been like coming home. He could not leave him again. Would not. The world could go hang itself if they ever thought that the Knight of Kisses would abandon his seahorse once again. For all that Laenor would not be in his rooms, someone was. He paused and listened at the door a moment, as had become his habit since his princess had trusted him as her spymaster. Where can we find that vaunted honor? Is it with the 2 bastard boys and whatever Lena whelps? Is it with the fortune and the fleet you sank into islands you've lost? Or is it in the ashes of Spice Town? He winced at the way she said Lena's name. Her word choice was damning as well. She's still smarting from Lena's rejection. She'd moved too soon, been too dismissive of Lena's turmoil on the matter, and been rejected. She would consider it the second such rejection if he knew her. She was too proud to try for a third. He opened the door and stepped inside. When he'd been 9 there had been a great council. All the lords and ladies of the 7 kingdoms had gathered at Harrenhal to pick the next heir to the throne. His father had been a great supporter of Rhaenys Targaryen, or rather her uncle and his lord, Bormund Baratheon. It had been that vocal loyalty that had earned his son a place as the Sea Snake's squire. The 9-year-old Joffrey had left his home and taken up service to the Lord of the Tides. He'd grown up fetching the man wine or papers, training under his watchful eye, or running messages back and forth. But never in all of the decades since had he seen Corlys Velaryon this defeated, this tired. It was a testament to how serious this was that the old man had foregone his faux sailor garb, opting for a rumpled doublet. He'd not even worn a doublet when his brothers had died. Rhaenyra did not look much better. Dark eyes that spoke to a lack of sleep, and the hint of red that he'd come to know meant she had been crying recently. The empty pitcher spoke of ingested wine, a lot of it if how she was swaying in her seat was any indication. Corlys paused in his response when he entered before snorting and gesturing to a free chair. Rhaenyra did not react as he lowered himself next to her. Her jaw was clenched tight. He internally sighed at that. It was a sign she was barely keeping her temper in check, and if her earlier outburst was any indication, when she did finally lose it, it would be explosive. Peace, we must remember the true enemy here, he told them. Corlys gave him a stiff nod. An acknowledgement. He did not return it. He was Rhaenyra's, not the Sea Snake's. Daemon. Corlys' voice was cold fury. That bastard. May the 7 curse the day he was born. Rhaenyra's head shot up again, and he silenced her with a warning look. We should scour those islands to the bedrock, she said sourly. Corlys grimaced. Those islands had cost him a lot of capital. The fleet he'd used to take them even more so. Add in the fact that Spicetown had burned and Laenor's investments not yet seeing a return. He would be willing to bet the Sea Snake's financial position was less secure than it had been since his voyages. We have taken a hit, but we can recover. He was a Valerian now, after all. He sometimes forgot that, forgot he had taken his wife's name, forgot he had taken the colors of the man he loved. Don't worry about it. We still have the businesses in Hull. Some of the docks can be expanded there in a pinch dash. We can petition my father for funds to repair Spicetown, Rhaenyra cut in. He winced mentally at the slur in her voice. Or sell Dark Sister, muttered Corlys. Rhaenyra froze and stared at him. What? He did not like that gleam in her eye. You do not think I was foolish enough to give him his sword back? We've got it locked up. I suppose we'll have to return it to Viserys. Neither Corlys nor Rhaenyra wanted that, although for different reasons. He decided to head her next idea off at the pass. You cannot wield Dark Sister, he told her as she opened her mouth to suggest just that. Why not? We could buy into the whole warrior queen business and snap up some of those war hawks. Firstly, the last time you drew a sword you nearly cut your own fingers off. Secondly, please remember the last warrior queen that bore that sword. You are already associated with alchemy, do you wish to risk an association with sorcery? Thirdly, the moment we reveal we have Dark Sister, Viserys will want it back. It is his right as head of House Targaryen. Then he'll probably give it to Aegon or Aemond at some point and improve Green legitimacy. She sulked at that, but it was gratifying to know she was sulking because she knew he was right. His princess trusted him and his advice. Besides, added Corlys, those war hawks, as you call them, will be after Daemon like a starving dog after a cut of meat. The moment the news of this, what is the word you use? Shit show. Yes, the moment they hear of this shit show they will be clamoring to burn the stepstones. Can we even attack Daemon with what we have now? Your fleet is at Bloodstone. Corlys blinked in surprise at the question and he hid his smile. Rhaenyra was not trained in war, but sometimes, just sometimes, she would have some bizarrely accurate insight you would not expect. We have 4 dragons but no fleet. And of those 4 dragons only 2 stand any chance against Caraxes. And of those 2 only one has seen true war, said Corlys darkly. I will not send my wife and children to their deaths. Only Rhaenys has a chance against him and she, I am not convinced she would prevail. Then he gets away with it. Corlys just laughed bitterly. For now. We cannot respond alone. We must await Viserys' decision, he told her and she scowled. She had never had a high opinion of her father if Laener's reports were to be believed. We have a more serious topic to discuss anyway, intoned Corlys. He frowned. He could think of no topic more serious than Viserys' decision regarding Daemon. When this gets out it will shake up the political scene once more. We must capitalize on that. We can no longer guarantee the level of bribery we have before, as such we must turn to other methods. He thought he saw where this was going. We must speak about your heirs. The fact that Lionel Strong was to accompany us alongside the 2 Kingsguard worried me slightly. It meant that whatever it was, Viserys felt that it could have political repercussions. How is your work with Alicent coming along? Asked Viserys after we'd walked out onto the small balcony that looked out over the bay. It's a work in progress. I'm waiting on some of Alicent's staffing choices. Ugh, it was such a shit show. We'd not been back 5 minutes before my dear father had suggested I occupy myself with reproducing Dragonstone's administration within the Red Keep, and only 2 minutes after he'd said it aloud during a family meal had he realized how badly that was going to look to his wife. The woman nominally in charge of that sort of thing and who was now looking at him as if she were mere seconds away from developing the ability to kill with her eyeballs. He'd been desperate for a topic that wasn't how badly Daemon had fucked up. He'd hoped for a nice little task to ease me into King's Landing again and instead wandered into a political minefield. That was Viserys for you, I guess. So he had, whilst desperately attempting to extract his foot from his mouth, settled on a compromise. I would create the rules and positions and Alicent got to choose who went where. At no point did Viserys see the problem with that. Great. Nice. Awesome. Because the Blacks really needed that hit as well as Daemon's shit and Corlys' money troubles to boot. Alicent was now the unquestioned mistress of the castle and had even gone so far as to remove those she didn't feel were green enough from their posts. This meant she'd resorted to shipping in knights and ladies from the Reach. I'm not screaming internally, at all. Excellent. I know Alicent was pleased with the whole business. Oh, I bet she was. Alicent is a smart woman, father, I said and managed to make it sound like a pleasant observation instead of a curse. He beamed at me before proffering his arm. I took it and tried not to shudder as we meandered along the balcony. About heirs, he asked after a while, eyeing my stomach meaningfully. I didn't quite suppress the shiver that ran through me, but he ignored it, like he ignores everything that doesn't quite fit into his worldview. Laner and I are trying, liar liar. I hadn't brought myself to do so yet. It cheers an old man up to hear of babies on the way. His face had brightened considerably. No doubt young Lena has your mind on the matter. I winced at that. She was showing now and I still wasn't thinking of babies when I looked at her. Now that I knew she wanted me in turn every time we met, I felt too big for my skin. Butterflies exploded in my stomach and I felt like that 14-year-old Renera following her about like a lost puppy once more. And she wouldn't even look me in the eye. Fuck my life. I took a deep breath and centered myself before I had a panic attack about babies or Lena in public. Mentioning I was hoping to have a child soon had been a mistake in retrospect. Viserys had seized on it as the only good news that had been delivered since Daemon's flight. Do not worry, father, you will be the first to know when I am expecting. He beamed at me. Something told me he was really looking forward to grandchildren. Like, really looking forward to them. But surely you did not ask me here to discuss Alicent and my pregnancy. I winced again as his face darkened. So I was right. He was just avoiding a difficult conversation. I must know, it is a difficult thing to ask, he began, eyes flickering to Lionel. Daemon made certain claims before he left. I swallowed thickly and braced myself for a difficult conversation. Are you referring to his claims that Lady Lena's babe is his? Or the claim he made that I am bedding Lady Lena? Or is it the excuse he gave to absolve himself of the burning of Spice Town, that Lord Corlys attacked first? Viserys was silent, studying me. Because none are true, father, it is Daemon attempting to wriggle free of the consequences of his actions once more. He stopped his walk and gazed out across the bay, jaw working hard. What colors do you wear, Renera? He asked finally. Flummoxed, I glanced down at my habitual black and red. His raised voice had my head snapping back up. What words are yours? What creature is yours? I don dash. Targaryen. Black and red. Fire and blood. You are a dragon. When I flinched, his face softened. You are not a seahorse, not a Valerion, however close they have grown to us. To you. I know that, I said quietly, heart somewhere in my stomach. Who is the head of House Targaryen, Renera? He asked. Behind me I could hear Lionel shifting uneasily. You are. He nodded at my answer. I am. I am the head of our house, your father and your damned king. His voice was steel and I could barely meet his eyes. So when I ask you to tell me the truth, you will tell me the damned truth. Now, let us try once more. Is the babe Lena Valerion carries my brother's get? Shit, shit, shit. Viserys had taken the gloves off. Your face says enough. Panic surged through me. Do you know you tense up and then relax when you lie? You have been doing it since you were old enough to lie. I am your father, at least credit me with knowing your tells. Father, please. Please, do not hurt her. It hurt my pride to beg, but if he revealed the father of her child now, I doubted she'd survive the aftermath. Father, she has been punished. She was taken in by him and she has been punished for that. He held up a hand, cutting me off. She is a woman grown, Renera, older than you and old enough to face the consequences for her actions, he said. She married below her station. The father of her child burned her family's pride. His face remained stony. Father, I will get on my knees and beg if it pleases you, but do not do this. Fear for the girl was stealing my breath. He frowned. Please dash. You will keep the Valerians in check. Lord Corlys once sought to rule through Rhaenys and he will seek to rule through you as well. And if you ever hide anything from me again, the warning was clear as he trailed off. I nodded. He had his stick now, I thought furiously. Stripping me of my title of heir had never been a threat, but threatening Lena, damn him. Daemon had him looking around him and realizing how fucked everything was. And the second thing, father? I asked sullenly after a period of silence. Your brother is old enough to squire. Away from court, he grunted. A pit opened up in my stomach. He was definitely trying to put us all into order then. I'd bet Syrax there were two reasons behind sending Aegon away just as I returned. The first? People at court were starting to whisper. Everyone has seen how terrified Aegon is of me, and it's gotten to the point where it's not even me directly anymore, but anything he perceives associated with me. The word craven is starting to get muttered a lot behind his back, and to his face. Westeros is horrible. But also Viserys was giving me the capital. Sending Aegon away meant Alicent could no longer use him personally. Perhaps he was not so blind to Alicent's attempts to fill the castle administration with greens as I had expected. Who are you sending him to? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. I felt like the world had suddenly shifted about me. Viserys had always been a speed bump before, something to be worked around certainly, but never an active player. Alicent wants me to send him to Jason Lannister. I have a mind to agree. Damn, she probably has him then. I'd have to tell Joffrey to step up his work on the reins. Historically, the reins have always been a good check on Lannister power. They too claim descent from Lon the Clever, albeit a cadet branch, and they've often had small skirmishes with the Lannisters. Oh, nothing on the scale of the reigns of Castamere or even like the Boltons to the Starks, but enough to let the Lannisters know they really wouldn't mind the Red Lions in Casterly Rock, and it would only take a small slip on the Golden Lion's part to see that happen. But the Reigns wanted what everyone wanted. A piece of my future children, although they'd kindly let our agents know they'd settle for a daughter instead of a son. A future Lady Reign instead of a future queen. Not Old Town? I asked. Viserys' face darkened again, and I realized that Old Town had likely been her first choice. Why refuse to send him to one green just to send him to another? Why let Alicent fill the castle with greens and then send her chosen candidate away? What game was he playing? No, ouch, that must have been one hell of an argument. Still, I'd long ago given up hopes of turning Aegon to my side. The fact that Alicent's plan had blown up in her face did not amuse me as much as it should. Aegon was 8, and what little self-confidence he had was being obliterated by the court right now. Also, I had no real alternative. He could hardly squire for Jane after all, and I had no other black that came with as much prestige as a Lord Paramount. I have no objections if Alicent is happy with the arrangement. Viserys nodded stiffly. Of course, if I'd actually had objections it wouldn't have counted for anything. He was letting everyone know that for all we schemed he was still king and he had the final say. We danced at his pleasure. Lord Corlys found me after Viserys had left. I honestly don't know if I preferred him as incompetent or competent. He might be trying to actively help me now, but, well, it came with certain expectations and a hell of a lot more oversight. And he finally had power over me. Fuck my entire life. What did Viserys want? Corlys asked as we made our way to my rooms. Casa Valerian was an awkward place to be right now, so I wasn't surprised he was lurking about the Red Keep. Lena had told Rhaenys, apparently. It went down like a lead balloon if the suspicious looks I kept getting and Laenor and Lena's strange reluctance to be in the same manse as their mother were any indication. He is fostering Aegon at Casterly Rock at Alicent's suggestion, apparently. Blast. Well, Joffrey said she was after them. How goes our courtship of the Reigns? I didn't answer and he groaned. They want a marriage too. How goes your attempts with my son? Well enough. We agree. I know. A few curious bypassers looked over at us at the shout. I grimaced and lowered my voice. I know. If it pleases you I will start tonight. It would have pleased me if you'd started the day you were wed, he said as we reached the door. Inside I could hear the telltale sounds of my ladies playing cards. Honestly, I regret teaching them some of the games. They've taken to it entirely too quickly. Blackjack being an ongoing favorite. Yes, well, we did not, I said, testily. I shall ensure Laenor comes to you tonight. I did not answer and opened the door. Corlys just snorted and bid me good day. I returned it with as good grace as I could manage and finally let myself relax as I stepped inside. Your Grace. We were just getting started on another game. Alice told me, waving a handful of cards that told me she'd once again lost money to her compatriots. My eyes drifted to the woman on her left though, sitting with downcast eyes. Lena. Lena, who had turned me down cold. Lena, who'd barely spoken to me since. Lena, who thought me a whore willing to spread my legs for a dragon. At least I could take solace in the fact she thought me the most expensive whore in existence. Please carry on. I'll watch, I told them and took up residence on a low couch under the window, settling back closing my eyes. Letting the sounds of my lady's mirth wash over me and trying to chase away the fear and nerves that had been set loose in my belly. I felt sick even though I hadn't eaten anything for lunch. I knew I should distract myself, maybe go ride Syrax or seek out Lord Gerald, but the couch was very comfy and I was very tired. I awoke to a worried Lena and an amused Laner with no sign of my ladies. The cards abandoned on the table told me they'd likely fled in a giggly mess the moment Laner had turned up and left Lena to deal with the detritus. I groaned and pulled myself upright. "What time is it?" I asked, voice thick with sleep. "Approaching sundown." "I arranged for us to take our meal here," Laner answered, and I could see his amusement was a front. He was as nervous as I was. No doubt his father had told him what I wanted him for. My stomach exploded into butterflies once more as Lena glanced between us. "You are well?" she asked finally. I tried not to show my surprise at the lack of surliness in her tone. She'd assumed I was taking Damon up on his suggestion to earn Vagor with my body, according to the all-knowing Joffrey. "Your father insists we revisit the issue of heirs," I told her, rubbing my tired and stinging eyes. Spite momentarily welled within me. I must earn his support on my back, it seems. Lena directed a glare at me and I glared right back. "You keep doing this. I will not be used again. Not even by you." I got ready to argue right back, but she held up her hand, taking a deep breath. "Rhaenyra, please stop with this. This is curiosity on your part. I look like Laner. I am safe to experiment with. My interest interests you in turn. But I am not. I just want to be comfortable with myself. Why is it that you can have an exception but I cannot?" I muttered, frustration boiling around inside of me and sounding more like a sulking child than I wanted. She gave her brother a look, who returned with one that said quite clearly he intended to stay out of whatever we had going on. This was childish in the extreme. She'd made her position quite clear. "Very well. I will not bring it up again. I am sorry to have made you uncomfortable." If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.